So one of the things that I want to remind loan officers is that websites quote rates, okay? But advisors engineer solutions. Like, we need to be the advisors. So what we need to do is not be caught on our heels when someone says, hey, I saw a lower interest rate online, or I saw a lower rate quoted when I was at my bank. I think that that's totally fine. We need to welcome that sort of a challenge. And I think the way that you answer that is to say, perfect, let's make sure that we break down what the total cost of that rate is to see if it's actually a better deal for you. Right. So what I did there was I acknowledged, perfect, let's take a look. There certainly is going to be lower rates out there. I'm not surprised by that. But by saying, let's take a look at the overall cost of that, I've done two things. One, I've already kind of suggested there's probably some additional cost to get that rate if it's lower than the one that I quoted you. That's the first thing. The second thing is I've pointed out that there's more details that we need about that quote to see if that rate really is legitimate. And oftentimes what I find with borrowers, and granted, I don't originate loans on a day-to-day, but I did for many years. And I would ask them, like, what were the points associated with that? It's like, oh, I didn't see that. I just saw the poster on the wall at my bank. Or I don't know, I just saw a bunch of lenders, on a list online. I didn't really look that close. And so either A, they just go, okay, well, there is more to this than I previously understood, or maybe encourage them, hey, go click on the disclosure, see what that information is and what the true cost is to get there. I mean, I'll tell you, I would personally prefer to have a conversation with a borrower about whether or not it makes sense to pay points or not, depending on their specific goals and what the total cost is, than I would to try to compare par interest rate against par interest rate, because you never know what the par interest rate is that someone else might be quoting. You don't even know if it is in fact par. And so you're setting yourself up for a more difficult sales process by sticking with a higher interest rate with no points than you would be if you just quoted what would be the most economical rate for them, assuming they're going to be in their loan for 4 to 7 years at least, which is pretty typical. I don't think we're misleading any borrowers here by making the assumption they're going to be in that loan for 4 to 7 years. Find an option that financially makes sense for them based on that time frame, and then present your work. Present to them why you suggested that option and why it makes the most sense for them. Now, look, at the end of the day, they may say, look, I just don't want to pay points. I would say, look, that's okay. Maybe you have other areas you'd rather invest that money that's going to give you a guaranteed rate of return, like paying down this interest rate is going to do. So if you have better options on where to put that money, I can certainly understand why you wouldn't want to pay any discount. But if in fact you plan on being in this home for the average 4 to 7 years, or you don't think you're going to be restructuring the loan, this is kind of a guaranteed rate of return on that investment. And here, let me show you the math on what that rate of return would be to you. So these are pretty simple strategies that do a couple things. One, they show your borrower that you're working with that you're educated on how money works, right? I mean, this is our job to understand this. And by presenting them with some different options to consider, you're showing them that you have that intimate knowledge on how these things work. The other thing that you do is you bring a little bit of complexity to the conversation, which I think is a good thing, because people go, well, Tony, what, are you just trying to confuse them? It's like, no, I'm not trying to confuse them. But the reality is this is a complex, calculation. This is a complex transaction. Like, this is complicated, truly. And I don't know that most consumers understand the complexity. So we have to expose them to some of the ways in which they might be being manipulated by the interest rates that they see. And then dumb it back down and make it simple for them to understand, because it's going to garner their trust and it's going to help them understand, okay, there's more to this than I actually thought. And I don't think that that's misleading in any way. It's really exposing the reality of how complicated it is to choose the right option for them.